guess there's no bus trips on.
Yeah.
Okay. Start ready to get started then. Well, good evening, everyone. My name is Brian Bailey. I'd like to welcome you all to the York County History Center this evening, whether you're in person or whether you're joining us online. I have just a few announcements about upcoming programs the History Center is putting on, and then see directly into this evening's Allvets program. First announcement is on Thursday, June 3rd, we are having our next Writers Roundtable. This is both an in-person and a live event through either Zoom or Facebook. Delma Rivera will be speaking at this particular event. If you want to come in person, we'll be here at York County History Center. On Friday, June 11th, we are having our Art and Leisure Auction Happy Hour. We weren't able to have an in-person one last year, but we're having it this year. It has a discos and 70s theme, which I've already heard is going to be quite popular. So again, that is a in-person, and also there are online elements to the event, so make sure to check out our website, York County History Center, for more information. And on Saturday, June 12th, the second Saturday program will be here, again, in person or online attendance. Carla Christopher will be talking on the subject, what is Juneteenth? And without any other further ado, I would like to welcome Brenda Webb here this evening for our Allvets group program for tonight.
Good evening, everyone. Our last speaker was very practiced at speaking, I think. This is my first time, so please have patience with me. I was with the division, 2nd Armored Division, Hell on Wheels, when I was in the Army. I recently got pulled over by a York County Regional Police officer for exceeding the speed limit. We, through questioning, and he saw the stickers on the back of my car, and so he realized I was a veteran. We understood that we were both Army veterans, and we found out that we were both stationed in Fort Hood at one time. So he was kind enough to just give me a warning. After I left, I realized that I was wearing my Hell on Wheels hoodie. So it could have been very bad for me, but he was kind. So I was born in Baltimore, Maryland. I was raised in the heart of Harford County. I graduated from Bel Air High School in 1973. That was right around graduation time. I lived on a farm. That farm. I really lived more in the barn than anywhere else because what I did was take care of the animals. That was my pleasure. We had some ponies, we had some ducks, we raised our own beef. That was the downside, that they went away, but I lived with it. And I spent many hours sitting on that little platform there down by the pond. I spent a lot of summer hours in that pond looking for bullfrogs. So that was my home until I decided to enlist in the Army. I went to see the recruiter, and my mom knew what I was doing. And I told the recruiter that I wanted to work outside. He had 3 choices of MOS for me. One of them was surveyor. I don't remember the third one, but the one that I chose was field wireman. I had the brilliant idea that when I finished my tour in the Army, that I could work with the telephone company. Little did I know, recruiters are never honest, as we all know, what I was getting myself into. But And when I got home, I sang a few lines from that Glenn Campbell song, I am a lineman for the county. And that's how I told my mom what I was doing. So I started my basic training at Fort McClellan, Alabama on May 31st, 1974, where we were promptly told that women are flowers and men are trees, and flowers do not talk to trees. Brilliant psychology there. Around 5 weeks into the 6 weeks of basic training was 4th of July. And we were treated to an afternoon relaxing out on the lawn. And we enjoyed it. Oh my gosh. After all of the exercise and running and marching and learning commands, we did appreciate that time out on the lawn. So I was so happy to be able to leave basic training. I had no idea what I was doing. I was stepping out of the frying pan and into the fire when I went to Fort Ord for my AIT training. The official name for my MOS was 36K20 Tactical Wire Operations Specialist. I was only the second woman out of 4 women who attempted it to complete that training. I did have some time where some magazine came out and interviewed me, television, they came out and interviewed me, but I never saw the results, but I had my moment of fame. However, I was not popular in the training circle. The Spec 5, who was there to knock some sense into all of us, was determined to prove I didn't belong. He tried to break me. I wouldn't break. If he told me to climb a telephone pole, go ahead, keep climbing. You're not done yet, keep climbing. And he was trying to scare me, but I wouldn't be scared. And I like to think that even though I wasn't deployed overseas, that I inspired some men to say, what the hell, if she's gonna do it, I'll do it for sure. So, because it was scary getting up on that pole. This is how a lot of people think you climb telephone poles, but that is wrong. This is how we were trained to climb telephone poles, with only a pair of gaffs on our legs and some heavy gloves on our feet. Of course, as the only woman in the class, the gaffs that we were given did not fit my legs. So I had bruises on the inside of my legs for a good long time after I finished this training. This is what the gaffs look like. This is the iron bar that goes along the inside of the leg, of the calf. This is what you hit your leg, hit your foot in hard to grab the pole. It's only that and your hands that are supporting you on the pole. And the reason why you don't keep a belt on you as you're climbing the pole is if you were to fall, you would go straight along down the side of that pole and it would rip up your body. You want to be able to push yourself away from the pole. This is what we were training. But here, this is the pole orchard. This is the photograph that I took, and it's not very good. These are all the little poles here. They were all meant to be at least 25 feet high. That's how high we had to climb. And once we got up there, then we could attach our belts to the pole. But it's hard to see there, so I found this pole orchard. Of course, they're all climbing the wrong way, not the way we were taught anyway. So that's the idea of a pole orchard. That was a good portion of our training, but in field wire, we were also responsible for maintaining radio equipment. So we had to know all the insides and outsides of a field radio. And once I was given a squad to go troubleshooting a long bit of wire. They put me in charge of this squad, and it was a loser squad. And the Spec 5 did that on purpose because he wanted to see me fail. That little tiny pack, that it's a shameful pack. I almost didn't put that up there because I know you guys carried a lot more than that, but that was sufficient for this particular troubleshooting detail. So, and of course I had to put my hair up. I was just kind of getting a photograph of what I was wearing. So I think it was 6 men, 6 losers, I thought, that went out on this detail with me. And they sat around and smoked and just kind of just wouldn't do anything. But it turned out there was one good guy in the bunch, and he and I got the work done, and were able to complete our detail. At its height, Fort Ord housed up to 50,000 troops and was used as a staging area for soldiers of the Korean and Vietnam Wars. After the Base Realignment and Closure Act in 1988, the EPA did an environmental impact study and found that within the 45 square miles of the base, there were underground tanks leaking petroleum, underground landfills and dump sites, numerous unexploded mines, and the decision to close Fort Ord came in 1991. A good bit of Fort Ord was turned into the Fort Ord National Monument, and still a small portion is used for the National Park. It was permanently closed in 1994. You can see here that I didn't smoke at the time. I didn't do anything bad, but I did find donuts. And so I had put on a little bit of weight. Here I am, all finished with Fort Ord, getting ready to go home on leave. Oh, one thing that we got to do in Fort Ord was we were asked to put in communication lines for a horse jumping equestrian event, cross country, between all the jumps. We were to string wire so the judges could communicate between the jumps. And that was kind of an exciting detail. On the way there, we got a glimpse of Clint Eastwood's property. I saw a little bit of white fence. They told me it was his property, and so that felt great. I've always been a Clint Eastwood fan. So the day that I left Fort Ord, someone did fall off a pole and got ripped up pretty bad. So it was just another clear indication of the danger of this job if people weren't focused and diligent about what they were doing. But I had a tremendous sense of pride. I didn't fail. I succeeded and proved to the Spec 5 and myself that I could complete that AIT training. So here I am, all ready to go home on leave. It was around December, and it was so great to go home. So my next stop after leave was Fort Hood. They call Fort Hood the Great Place. Yeah. Because I guess it was the only post in the country capable of housing and training 2 armored divisions. It was 215,000 acres to me of mesquite trees and dust. Not an attractive place. But after being completely sequestered at Fort McClellan and then Fort Ord's only 20,000 acres, this seemed like I was on a different planet. Major General George S. Patton IV took command of the 2nd Armored Division here in 1975. I was appointed a stand-in usher for the event, which made me super proud. And his father, General George S. Patton, the one we all know and love, was also he commanded the same division. So at that time, it was the first time in Army history that a father and son had commanded the same division. So it was kind of a high moment in my time at Fort Hood, but probably the only one. So this was my room. It was an ugly, ugly room. Yeah, I tried to make it a little homey with some plants. This was the view out my window. Now you can see in this building here, there are 3 stories. In my barracks, men were housed on the 1st and 3rd floors, and women were housed on the 2nd floor. It was an indication to me of how unsafe Fort Hood might be for women. And it proved to be unsafe for women, and I learned, while I was there, I learned firsthand just how unsafe it was. But anyway, sometimes we had raids during the night. Some fools would just want to storm the barracks, the female barracks, and try to scare us. And they did. Well, they scared me because there I am, basically fresh off the farm. And that was life in the barracks for me. So working in the motor pool, I was responsible for maintaining field communications equipment, keeping them field ready. I would have to inspect them regularly, make sure everything was in working order, inspect our supply of wire and everything else that we needed to be out in the field. It was tedious at times, inspecting the same radio that I had looked at a couple days before. I knew it was okay because it hadn't been used, but anyway, that was my job. I couldn't hide Mostly it was on vehicles like this 1/4-ton truck. Sometimes bigger trucks, but nothing humongous in our particular motor pool. I was the only woman working in the motor pool. And so you might be able to guess the attention I garnished there. Tall, blonde, slim. And I think most of those men had never seen anyone like me before, the way they acted. Oh, that is not supposed to be there. It got out of order. I can't move the picture. So when I sat in the office, what I'm trying to get to here is the picture I kind of drew of how the office was laid out. That's the one. Okay. I apologize for how this is drawn, but that's basically, right there's my desk and my little chair. And here was the communications office where we worked. Back behind me were 2 floors. Up here was the parts room. On this wall, the huge Texas cockroaches would crawl. And these guys up here enjoy throwing things at these cockroaches to try to make them fly down to me. And I was terrified of them. Sometimes the parts, the screws, the bolts and things they threw would land on my desk. Sometimes they would hit me. I would try to get someone to get them to stop, but nobody ever listened. Nobody ever listened about anything there. Women in the service in the 70s, sexual harassment was rampant and nobody was doing anything about it. I could escape out into the motor pool itself, but the taunting and yelling was even worse out there. So we would go out on field maneuvers. I don't know what's going on with these. I'll just talk. We would go out on field maneuvers, and in the daytime, we would maybe go out into a field and pick up trash, sheets of metal. We were warned about the tarantulas and the scorpions, told be wary of them, to pick up things slowly so we wouldn't be bit by anything. I found a lovely little green snake. It was beautiful, only about this long. And so I forgot about the stuff out in the field, and I just carried this green snake around, and I thought about bringing it home and making a pet out of it. And I was showing it off to a lot of people. So this captain and a lieutenant, they come along, and the captain says, "That's a nice snake, let me see it." And I hand it to him because I really don't have a choice. And he throws it on the ground and stomps it with his boot. And I'm devastated because I finally had a pet. All this time while in the service, I didn't have a pet. And I had found one, but he stomped it. So word got out among all the soldiers that I was upset my green snake had been killed. So some guy came along, I'd never met him, and he had a nice pretty little green snake, and he said, "Here, now keep it away from the captain." And so I kept it hidden and I took it home. I was married at the time, and my husband made me let it go. So all that, for nothing. But on the nighttime maneuvers that we would go on, because I worked in the motor pool, I was required to stay out all night with the rest of the troops. The women who worked in admin, they were allowed to go back to their barracks and sleep at night. So I was the only woman sleeping out in tents with all the male troops. And it did make me nervous. I had reason to be nervous. So I didn't get much sleep when things like that happened. So like I said, I had met Alan there in the motor pool. I can say that the sexual harassment lessened when everyone got the word that we were dating and then we got married. We found housing in nearby Copper's Cove, and it was full of roaches too, but not quite so giant. There was a school nearby, so I guess they came over from there. I had the option at the time, we still had the choice of being honorably discharged. If a woman was pregnant, she had the choice of being honorably discharged. So I took that out. And in September of 1975, I was honorably discharged from the Army. So I wasn't in there for a very long time, but I like to think that I accomplished a lot as far as breaking some barriers, accomplishing what I set out to do, proving my strength in uncommon situations. While I was there, there were great changes for women in the Army. The Army Chief of Staff approved the consolidation of basic training for men and women. And when test programs showed that female graduates met the standards in every area except for physical readiness training. By 1977, combined basic training for men and women became policy, and men and women began integrating in the same basic training units on Fort McClellan, Alabama, and Fort Jackson, South Carolina, in September. Similarly, the first gender integrated MOS class, according to the internet, began with the military police one station unit training at Fort McClellan on July 8, 1977. But I'm here to tell you that there was gender integration in Fort Ord in the pole orchards, because I did it almost 2 years before this date. Any questions?
Oh, what kind of snake is the green one?
Oh, it's just a little green grass snake. Mhm.
Why was your room red?
I have no idea. This wasn't that ugly.
Couldn't change the color.
We couldn't change anything.
That's the Army, not the Air Force.
How many years?
I enlisted for 4 years. But I couldn't do 4 years in Fort Hood. It was a very dangerous place for women. Women were not safe. They were physically harassed, verbally harassed by whole units as they passed in the street.
You find the pulse and student training?
No, I have not. But I've told people, you're doing that wrong.
We'll go show them how to do it.
Yes,
Would you consider staying in the military longer if you received a more welcoming or at least a less unwelcome reception from?
oh, yes. I truly wanted to serve my country for a longer period of time. I was committed to it when I enlisted. I was very naive. I think you can see that in the pictures. Had no idea what to expect. I had nobody in the family that was around that could warn me. But yes, if I had felt safe, I would have stayed.
Like, I wonder how many other people had similar situations where they could have contributed so much to the military because of the environment they would want to stick around. And I completely understand why.
I know of one other person, a friend personally, who had to leave because she was afraid for her physical safety. Fort Hood is actually a terrible place for everything, from what I hear. It's a bad place. I wanted to go to Fort Hood because my grandmother lived in San Antonio. And I had been to visit her and I had been on the river walk and it was so peaceful and green. And I thought, oh yeah, I can go visit her whenever I want. But not too much. Any more questions?
What careers did you want to go in after the army? Did you work or not?
Well, basically, I was prevented from working by my domestic situation. But I didn't find my true passion career-wise until in my 50s when I discovered accounting. I always had a talent for numbers.
So, yeah.
Oh, yeah, always the animal things. We had 50 mallards on the farm when I left, and I could tell them all apart. Nobody believed me, but I could, and I had them all named.
Well, that's your terrestrial objects or?
No.
And when did you move up back to this area?
I moved back when my first husband died. And I had 2 little girls to care for by myself.
You spent time here in North Dakota for a period.
Well, actually, I grew up in Maryland. So, but then eventually I married into Pennsylvania. Mhm. Yeah, but still relatively close to my family. Yeah. I guess that's it.